Greatness isn't luck, it's a system. Today on Insibook, we're turning Jim Collins's Good to Great into a no-fluff playbook you can use to upgrade your team, your business, even your solo project. In the next few minutes, you'll see why the best leaders are quiet killers, level 5, how to get the right people on the bus, and how confronting brutal facts without losing faith unlocks momentum. We'll nail your Hedgehog Concept, the one thing you can be best at, build a culture of discipline, not bureaucracy, and push the flywheel so results start compounding on their own. If you're tired of chasing hacks and want a blueprint that actually scales, don't skip. By the end, you'll have a clear set of moves to turn good enough into undeniable. Ready to go from good to great, on purpose? Let's spin the flywheel. Greatness doesn't arrive with a trumpet blast. It accumulates in quiet rooms during ordinary days by teams who have stopped chasing the latest management fashion and started doing a few essential things with unflinching consistency. The shift from good to great is less about dramatic transformation than about a pattern of disciplined choices that stack on top of each other until momentum becomes unmistakable. What looks like a breakthrough from the outside usually feels like a long, steady push from the inside, a heavy flywheel turning one deliberate notch at a time. The destination is measurable performance sustained for years, but the route runs through character, clarity, and culture more than through charisma. The first move is to reconsider leadership. The stories that dominate headlines and biographies often celebrate the meteor, the larger-than-life figure who strides in, announces a vision, and bends the company to their will. What actually correlates with lasting greatness is something almost embarrassingly plain. Leaders whose ambition is ferocious but not for themselves. Leaders who think first about the institution, not their image. They are relentless about results and ruthless about standards, yet personally modest to the point of being easy to underestimate. When things go right, they look out the window and credit their people, their predecessors, even luck. When things go wrong, they look in the mirror and take responsibility. This combination of humility and will is rare because it asks a person to make themselves small so the mission can be big, to be both steel and velvet at once. These leaders measure success not by how indispensable they appear, but by whether the organization is stronger after they're gone. With that kind of leader in place, or with that kind of leadership cultivated, the second move is surprisingly practical. Start with who, not what. Before leaning into strategy decks or reorganizations, get the right people on the bus, the wrong people off, and the right people into the right seats. The order matters. Right people are not defined primarily by skill sets, which can be taught, but by character, work ethic, and the habit of taking responsibility. When the right people are aboard, direction becomes easier to discover because the conversation improves, the tolerance for mediocrity collapses, and the team self-corrects toward excellence. When the wrong people remain, even the cleverest plan dissolves under the friction of low standards and hidden agendas. This hiring and seating work is more nuanced than an intake of talent. It is a commitment to rigor. Don't hire until you are sure. When you see you've made a wrong call, act quickly. And if you feel torn, keep looking. Rigor doesn't equal cruelty. It means standards are clear enough that decisions, though difficult, are clean and respectful. It also flows the other way. Once the right people are in place, they don't need tight oversight. Compensation and incentives matter far less than belonging to a place where they can do their best work with people who hold themselves to a high bar. Bureaucracy withers because it is a substitute for discipline, and disciplined people govern themselves. Having assembled a team capable of facing reality, invite reality fully into the room. Greatness begins with the truth spoken without varnish. The organizations that cross the threshold are not the ones with the most optimistic memos. They are the ones that create cultures where anyone can raise a red flag, where the hardest questions are tackled first, and where leaders deliberately make it safe to tell them what they least want to hear. There is no fetish here for pessimism. The point is to practice the paradox that unlocks resilience. Never lose faith that you will prevail in the end, and at the same time confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they are. That paradox reframes hardship. It's not a verdict, it's data. The groceries of progress are bought with honesty. Facing facts changes strategy from a guessing contest into a design challenge. But the design only works when it is simple enough to live. The heart of simplicity is focus, and the heart of focus is a concept that looks almost childlike, the notion of a hedgehog. While the fox knows many things and chases many opportunities, the hedgehog knows one big thing and executes it relentlessly. Applied to an organization, that one thing sits at the intersection of three circles. First, what can you be the best in the world at? Not in a generic category, but in a sharply defined activity or model. Second, what are you deeply passionate about? Work that stirs genuine energy rather than borrowed enthusiasm. Third, what drives your economic engine? The single denominator that most powerfully explains your financial performance, whether profit per customer visit, profit per employee, or some other measure that captures how the machine makes money. The Hedgehog Concept is not a slogan. It is a filter. If an initiative doesn't sit at the overlap of those circles, it doesn't endure. Reaching that clarity rarely comes in a single epiphany. It arrives through an iterative conversation among people who trust each other enough to argue, test, and refine. A small group, call it a council, meets regularly with the data and the field experience, refusing to settle for vague answers. They ask what they can be the best at, not what they want to be or what they could do reasonably well. They ask what really thrills them about the work, not what they are supposed to be excited about. They ask which economic denominator, if improved quarter after quarter, would most reliably produce endurance and growth. Over time, a simple statement emerges, so obvious in retrospect that everyone can carry it in their pocket. That statement then becomes a quiet tyrant, demanding alignment and rejecting distractions. Once the hedgehog is known, discipline becomes the culture's spine. It is not the discipline of micromanagement or the discipline of performative grind. It is the discipline of standards held without apology, of systems built to keep important promises, of decisions that say no with more frequency than they say yes. A culture of discipline looks almost boring from the outside because the drama has been removed. People know their responsibilities and have freedom within a framework. Budgets stop being negotiation contests and start being expressions of the hedgehog. Resources go to the activities that fit. Everything else releases its claim. A stop-doing list grows alongside the to-do list because saying yes without saying no is how mediocrity creeps back in. In this environment, technology takes its proper place. It is not the starting gun or the savior, it is an accelerator. Tools are adopted because they advance the hedgehog or strengthen the discipline, never because they are fashionable or because a rival installed them. The sequence matters. First the right people and the right focus, then the technology that makes those people more effective at that focus. When the order is reversed, when technology is used as a substitute for clarity or competence, the result is faster confusion. When the order is kept, technology makes a good system great more quickly. The rhythm of all this, who before what, brutal facts, hedgehog, discipline, appropriate technology, creates a certain momentum. It feels like pushing a massive flywheel. In the beginning, effort is enormous and the movement barely perceptible. With each push, the wheel turns a notch, then another, then another. No single push is the one, all of them are the one. Eventually, the wheel's own weight starts to work for you. Speed accumulates. From the outside, people ask which program you installed to achieve the breakthrough. From the inside, you know there was no program, just a commitment to keep pushing in the same consistent direction, guided by the same concept, long enough for compounding to show its face. The opposite pattern, the doom loop, looks like a series of violent lurches. A new leader arrives with a new slogan, the strategy changes before the last one had a chance to work, reorganization becomes a way of life, and the wheel never builds speed because it is constantly being turned in a new direction. Examples make the pattern less abstract. Consider a company that looked at its product line and realized it could never be the best at manufacturing commodity inputs no matter how hard it tried. Rather than cling to sunk costs, it sold its mills, an act that looked like madness from the outside, and plowed the proceeds into building and acquiring consumer brands where it could win on design and distribution. The move came not from a spreadsheet trick but from a clean reading of the three circles. In time, the decision proved prescient because the company had aligned itself with an arena where its people could marshal an unfair advantage. Another organization examined the future of retail, confronted the brutal fact that its traditional format was dying, and made the courageous choice to shut old stores that still produced revenue, pouring resources into a new format that matched how customers actually wanted to shop. The pain was front-loaded, the payoff back-loaded, and the only reason the plan survived long enough to work was cultural discipline, decisions taken once and not reopened at every bump. Elsewhere, a bank decided to build a culture of frugality and operating excellence rather than a culture of empire building. It refused to be seduced by acquisitions that looked good on league tables but looked sloppy on a balance sheet. It cultivated leaders from within who were steeped in the ethos of cost discipline. When deregulation and consolidation swept the industry, this bank did not panic. It executed. Its technology investments were functional and timely, not flashy. Its risk appetite was guided by the brutal facts, not by the mood of the moment. Over a long window, that discipline translated into returns that looked remarkable, though the behavior itself rarely did. A steelmaker, scorned by giants, refused to pretend it could be the best at the traditional integrated model. Instead, it built itself around mini-mills, an approach that looked small at first but allowed for a ferocious culture of productivity and experimentation. Compensation was pegged tightly to output, managers were expected to be intimately familiar with the line, and the ethos was egalitarian and relentless. Each step up the quality ladder, from rebar to thin sheet, was made only when the brutal facts supported the move. The Hedgehog here was not technology for its own sake, but technology in hands disciplined enough to squeeze performance from it, step by step, until an underdog changed the industry. What these stories share is not an industry or a decade, but a stubborn refusal to make complexity a virtue. There is also a counter-pattern that teaches by contrast. When organizations put a celebrity at the top and expect that personality to carry the day, they often enjoy a year or two of excitement. The focus drifts from systems to speeches. Strategy changes before it takes root. The workforce watches for signals rather than internalizing standards. Numbers look better for a time, then falter as the engine strains under new demands it was never built to meet. A replacement arrives with another set of promises. The wheel jerks. The doom loop deepens. These dynamics filter down to personal choices for anyone leading a team at any scale. The first responsibility is to become the kind of leader whose ego serves the work rather than the reverse. This looks like asking questions until the truth is on the table, giving away credit, absorbing blame, and refusing to be distracted by the pursuit of applause. Next comes the staffing discipline. Keep searching until you are sure, and when you're not sure, be honest about it. If a person is wrong for the role, move them with urgency and with dignity. If a person is right for the role, trust them with real responsibility and remove obstacles rather than creating more rules. Then build the habit of facts. Create routines that force reality into the light before it becomes a crisis. Stand-up meetings where anyone can raise a risk without fear. Dashboards that measure what actually drives performance rather than what flatters the quarterly report. Postmortems that ask what assumptions failed and what will be done differently next time. Alongside these, cultivate the paradoxical faith that says, "We will prevail, we just don't yet know how." That faith is not a prediction, it's a posture. It keeps the team from confusing sober assessment with defeatism and keeps energy available for the next right move. The search for the hedgehog is a gift you give your people, because nothing is more exhausting than chasing priorities that change with the weather. To find it, shrink the questions until they fit your context. What can this team, in this place, be the best at? What do we actually care about here? What work makes us proud beyond the paycheck? Which single metric, if improved month after month for years, would make everything else easier? Keep the answers small and literal enough to use. Be the best at innovation is a fog bank. Be the best at turning store visits into profit per visit, even if that means fewer but better stores, is a handle people can grab. With that clarity in place, choose discipline over drama. Publish the handful of rules that matter. Tie budgets to the rules. Protect time for execution by saying no to almost everything else. Create a ritual for killing projects that do not fit the hedgehog, even if they once belonged to the boss. If a process helps the right people do the right things more easily, keep it. If a process merely compensates for the wrong people or the wrong focus, remove it and fix the root problem. Celebrate behaviors that honor the framework more than outcomes that result from luck. And when the world presents new technologies or trends, ask the hedgehog questions before touching anything. If the answer is yes, this will accelerate our one big thing: experiment, learn, and adopt. If the answer is no, let others sprint toward the shiny objects while you keep building the engine. Protect the flywheel mentality by making progress visible. Keep a timeline of small wins so no one forgets the buildup. Mark the turning points when decisions clarified the path. As the wheel picks up speed, avoid the temptation to declare victory or chase adjacencies that don't fit. Success is dangerous because it disguises drift. Excellence is the product of thousands of decisions that looked minor at the time. The job is to keep making those decisions after the attention has moved elsewhere. There is an ethical layer to all of this that often goes unmentioned. A culture that prizes truth, discipline, and humility tends to be a place where people can grow without pretending, where credit is shared, and where accountability is real but not cruel. Such a culture earns trust with customers and investors because it refuses to fake results or cut corners to hit a quarter. It invests in the integrity of its systems, not just the appearance of its numbers. It also tends to develop leaders from within because people see a path for themselves beyond political maneuvering. Building greatness this way is slower than the meteoric alternative, but it is safer for everyone involved and more likely to survive storms. What about ambition? The call to discipline and focus is not a call to smallness. It is an invitation to concentrate ambition where it compounds. Once a hedgehog concept is in place, bold goals become not only possible but inevitable. Audacity with alignment is thrilling, audacity without alignment is dangerous. When goals are anchored in the intersection of passion, best-in-world potential, and economic engine, they act like magnets for effort. People know why the climb matters and how the climb will be financed, and they can see where their steps fit into the ascent. When goals are announced for their own sake, they drain energy and set the stage for the doom loop's next turn. Time, above all, is the element that knits these principles into results. The most common failure mode is not choosing the wrong concept, it is failing to give the right concept time to work. Leaders change, the board grows impatient, investors clamor, the news cycle scorches attention, and patience thins. In those moments, the temptation is to spin the wheel in a new direction to show motion. Yet the math of compounding, whether in trust, in culture, or in financial returns, refuses to operate on command. It demands consistency across seasons. The companies that cross over do not resist accountability, they anchor it in long-term measures and refuse to let the next quarter be their master. All of this can be misunderstood as a recipe, and it is not. It is a pattern that shows up in different industries and different eras because it is rooted in human nature and organizational reality. The exact words on the wall, the exact metrics on the dashboard, the exact shape of the team will differ. The pattern remains: leadership that places mission above ego, people selected for character and seated with rigor, truth sought and told, a simple uniting concept discovered and defended, discipline expressed as freedom within a framework. Technology used to accelerate, not distract, and momentum built through many small right pushes that eventually become a rush you can ride. Stand inside such an organization on an ordinary Tuesday and it does not feel like a monument. It feels like professionals doing what they said they would do, holding themselves to a standard because it's who they are, fixing what's broken because no one else will, and ignoring applause because the work itself is the point. The hallways are calm, meetings are shorter than you expect, decisions are clearer than you're used to. The scoreboard is simple, people argue about important things and let the rest go. When a storm hits, no one panics because the system was built with the storm in mind. When a tailwind blows, no one becomes arrogant because they remember how long it took to get the wheel moving. And if you step back far enough to watch the arc of years, you see what the daily view obscures. The line bends upward. Not every month and not every year, but undeniably. Competitors come and go. Fads shout and then fade. The great ones keep showing up, doing the work, adding weight to the same flywheel, iterating their hedgehog with new learning, refusing to trade their discipline for speed. By the time the world starts calling them great, the people inside have already moved on to the next right decision because the point was never the label. The point was the integrity of the craft. For any leader or team ready to try, the entry ramp is always the same. Begin with yourself. Replace the hunger to be recognized with the hunger to build something worthy. Tell the truth about where you are and do it out loud. Gather the right people and give them room to think, to disagree, and to own outcomes. Search patiently for the intersection where your passion, your potential for unrivaled excellence, and your economic engine meet. Once found, make it your North Star. Say no to almost everything else. Keep score simply and fairly. Use tools that speed you up only when they fit the work. Push the flywheel, then push it again tomorrow. The distance between good and great is not measured in slogans or in the charisma of whoever holds the microphone. It is measured in the discipline of 1,000 unglamorous decisions, the courage to face facts without surrendering faith, and the humility to direct ambition toward the work rather than toward the self. That distance is traversable. It asks for patience and principle more than brilliance, and it rewards those who accept that greatness is not a moment to be seized, but a character to be built, quietly, until the day the results make the case without anyone having to.